In 2017, Indian forces faced off against China's Liberation Army in Doklam. India, backing Bhutan, felt China had ignored boundaries imposed by the 1890 Convention of Calcutta. China disagreed. A tense standoff ensued, but not just between the armies. India's prized boxer Vijender Singh confronted China's top-ranked super middleweight Zulfikar Maimai for the WBO Asia Pacific and Oriental super middleweight titles. Singh would state, "There is more responsibility because it's India versus China, and right now the situation is bad." The bout resembled a street fight with constant clinching, wrestling, and the Chinese fighter was docked for consistent low blows. Vijender would secure a fortunate unanimous decision, with many seeing the result as contentious. Regardless, Vijender was now best placed to head an Indian boxing revolution, having won India's only men's Olympic boxing medal at the 2008 Olympics, alongside building powerful connections and becoming a Bollywood star. But it hasn't quite gone to plan. Let's examine why India has struggled in boxing before investigating where it can later find success. Please do leave a like for the algorithm. India currently sits 52nd in the all-time Olympic medal table, 133rd in the men's football rankings, and its number one MMA prospect, Murdia Saikia, was recently flattened within 37 seconds, all in spite of its 1.43 billion population size to draw upon. Yet these failings are largely down to the country's obsession with cricket. The Indian Premier League's commercial success, alongside the prevalence of cricket on live television, has contributed to gully cricket's forming. Essentially, children in India spend much of their time playing cricket in the streets as they deem it as a ticket to prosperity. Whereas in countries like Mexico and the Philippines, impoverished kids obsess over the sweet science. You get the general picture. But this still doesn't fully explain boxing's failure. India still has fantasized over boxing historically. Bollywood has produced countless combat sports films throughout the decades, with Mukkabaz, Aryan, Lahore, and Irudi Sutru all receiving extensive praise. As far back as 1984, movies like Boxer, starring Mithun Chakraborty, were described as super hits, while Sharma's Dancing with Demons boxing fiction novel from 2014 has garnered extensive attention. I'm therefore surprised that the stream of boxing-inspired films has not boosted Indian boxing success on the world stage, particularly when considering Nikhil Gadgil's hypothesis that Bollywood significantly influences people's lifestyle choices. You'd think more children would take up the sport, especially with Bollywood portraying its fighters as world beaters. Well, even before the films, this did used to be the case. In the book Bhiwani Junction, Dasgupta notes that in the mid-1940s in Madras, Indian-style boxing started attracting a lot of young boys, or at least the lure of the purse did. But this boxing format was especially brutal, forbidding hits below the neck entirely. Over 200 boxing clubs came up in Madras alone, leading to the city becoming a pugilism hotspot. In Bengal, the Bengali Boxing Association was founded by Santosh Dey, who scored a memorable win over the Royal Air Force boxers in 1944 before beating the US Army team a year later. Very impressive. Indian boxing was simply thriving, yet two things happened to decimate the progress. Firstly, Dasgupta argues Indians had begun to fight the Anglo-Indians and Britishers at tournaments to erode the prejudice against their brown skin, at least in the boxing arena. This discrimination had actually breathed fire into the bellies of young aspiring boxers, as they could make money and dispel racism levelled against them. But, of course, in 1947, hordes of people like Anglo-Indians, Jews, Armenians and the British left the country, taking a massive chunk of Indian boxing with them. The colonial racism was now gone, but so was much of the infrastructure and bureaucracy which had aided the Indian boxers previously. The amateur structure especially suffered, which of course is normally the bloodline of a country's boxing exploits. Now, there are some parallels between India and China. Both have experienced population explosions over the last century and have seen major industrialization to varying degrees. Yet their boxing success in the amateurs has been wildly different. From the 1948 to 2012 Olympic Games, a study analysing 43 boxers from India and 34 boxers from China found the likelihood of securing a medal for the Chinese was 17.65%. India, meanwhile, was just 2.33%. Infrastructure was key. China was simply investing far more into Olympic sports, not just boxing, granting boxers access to trainers, equipment, and boxing gyms. It was now essentially government-run academies up against potentially fraudulent private Indian coaches. And with there only being 982 boxing clubs in India, when compared to 21 million paid users in China, the lack of infrastructure becomes more telling. Yet, all the infrastructure in the world can't make up for one deficiency: physical well-being. The studies into malnutrition in India are extensive, specifically citing the poor impact it has upon the nation's aspiring boxers. It's estimated that 1 in 3 children in India currently are stunted and underweight, making the feasible talent pool substantially smaller. Many may also point towards the notion of Indians having poor genetics, pointing largely to the shorter, skinny, fat body type as a factor holding them back. But I don't believe this is too major. For example, a study found that the shorter stature was due to the environment, while the often plumper build tends to come from a lack of intensive cardio. Simply through examining cricketers like Rohit Sharma compared to boxers like Shiva Thapa and Neeraj Goyat, we see that genetics aren't the factor hindering Indians in boxing. It's just a byproduct of not taking sports like boxing seriously. There is no genetic element to it. Sadly, the sweet science has been additionally hurt by the government. The widely respected sports administrator Ashok Mattu once stated the 1990s was one of never-ending struggles to get even small amounts of money to get basic facilities or exposure for young boxers. Moreover, corruption has been rife within both the amateur and professional federations, leading to bans for manipulation of elections alongside malpractices in the selection process. Unfortunately, this combination has led to the stagnation of promising careers, including Amit Pangal's most recently. With the Indian amateur system in tatters in the early 2010s, Vijender Singh opted to go professional in late 2015. His profile throughout India was high, not just through his Olympic success, but also due to his appearance in the Bollywood film Fugly. After his victory over China's Mai Maitiali, his record stood at 9-0. Feeling on top of the world, on August 11, 2017, he would declare, "You feel like quitting, but you have been a fighter since childhood. You will never give up." Unfortunately, this statement would come back to haunt him. Singh would win his next 3 bouts, defeating America's Mike Snyder and Ghana's Charles Adamu. But then, he fought Russia's Artush Lopsan in Panjim. Many questioned Singh's desire and will, implying that he was too focused on his Bollywood exploits and ultimately failed to get in the required shape for bouts. Yet it was likely his flip-flopping between politics and boxing which hurt the fighter as he joined the Indian National Congress in 2019. This meant he was literally part of Congress when he fought this disastrous bout against the Russian. Sadly, his boxing career since has subsided. Getting outboxed on a reality TV show by an amateur isn't really the best look. With Vijender now in his late 30s and basically inactive in pro boxing, there is fortunately still a way in which he can use his experience and influence to affect future change in Indians' boxing fortunes. As of March 2025, Vijender will officially contest for the Boxing Federation of India president's post. Having a high-profile individual who understands the struggles of boxers and, importantly, views boxing beyond a simple monetary means should hopefully reduce corruption. Vijender will bring a fresh perspective, stating that for Indian boxers to do well, it is imperative that they train abroad. As a man who fought his first 5 pro fights in the UK and Ireland, he likely understands the merits of learning new boxing styles and training techniques, and this diversification of knowledge is vital. Take the highly talented prospect Nishant Dev. Having trained at Karan Stadium under Surinder Chauhan, he bounced back after being absolutely robbed at the Paris Olympics against Marco Alvarez by moving to the USA to train under coach Ronald Sims. This has enabled him to frequently spar with top American and European fighters, alongside boosting his endurance and toughness in a testing environment. If he had remained in India, I highly doubt he'd be showing this level of promise in the pro ranks. The highly renowned Indian female boxer Mary Kom won the amateur boxing championships 6 times, having fought and trained out of various European locations. India therefore needs to develop a better boxing exchange program with countries of strong boxing pedigree. Then its boxers will be exposed to new environments. Obviously, India at least needs a set of talented young fighters to even begin the boxing revolution. But I'd argue this is somewhat in place. At the recent World Boxing Cup, India secured 3 gold, 5 silver and 3 bronze medals in Astana, with Abhinash Jamwal looking impressive despite losing a split decision in the final. Additionally, support for boxing in India does seem to be spiking. Nishant Dev's rise, alongside the organisation of the Super Fighter Series in Bangalore, has provided much exposure for Indian fighters. Lalding Sangha won the WBC Youth World Bantamweight title, putting his pro record at 12-0 now, so he could be an additional fighter to keep an eye on. The country has even entered into the influencer boxing space, with Max Turn facing Adarsh on the Goyat show, which attracted substantial attention. Whether you like it or not, influencer boxing is a strong avenue for attracting support for boxing amongst younger viewers, so this can only be a positive sign. To conclude, a country of India's size and global presence simply has had an underwhelming boxing history, contrary to what Bollywood would have you believe. Aside from Mary Kom in the 2000s and Hawa Singh in the late 60s and early 70s, the country has failed to produce any dominant amateur pugilists, and the professional ranks has seen even more limited success. However, despite having a somewhat underwhelming boxing career himself, Vijender Singh could certainly be the key to cleaning up the Indian boxing circuit and providing conditions for talent to shine. But now I'd like to hear what you guys think. Can India produce a world beater soon? How would you fix Indian boxing? Now, I'm no expert on this, so I'd like to hear the thoughts of the Indians watching, if there are any. Please leave your comments down below. Also, please consider liking and subscribing, it genuinely does mean the most. More content will be on its way soon, so keep an eye out for that. That's everything guys, all the best, cheers.